That morning, Ryan was awakened by the aroma of bacon wafting from the kitchen below. He blinked his eyes open and caught sight of the clock. It was already 7 a.m. He remembered then, Beverly was an early riser, especially when it came to caring for her chickens. He turned to her side of the bed, finding it empty, confirming she had gotten up while he was still asleep. Groaning softly, he dragged himself out of bed, rushed through a shower, and got dressed in his everyday attire. It was then he noticed a note left for him on the dresser. "My beloved Ryan," it started. "I rose early to attend to the chickens and have a few deliveries to make this morning, so I'll be out until around noon. I didn't want to wake you knowing how tired you were, so I let you get some more rest. Sarah mentioned she'd handle breakfast for everyone. I'm aware you planned on taking the kids back home today. If you need to head out before I'm back, just give me a call. I'll understand. Love you." The note was lovingly signed by your soon-to-be overjoyed wife, Beverly. Ryan couldn't help but smile, admiring Beverly's commitment to her poultry, even after what happened the night before. Still, he was curious how she managed to juggle everything so efficiently. As he made his way downstairs, the sound of the television caught his attention. Buster beckoned Ryan into the living room upon seeing him. Ryan scooped up little Ryan, placing him on his lap as he settled onto the couch. The boy, along with everyone else in the room, was completely absorbed in the news broadcast. "Look at this," Buster said, slightly increasing the volume. This morning, Knight Petroleum stock experienced a downturn following reports of an alleged assault on one of the company's southeastern New Mexico retreats, the news anchor reported. Local and federal law enforcement are collaborating closely to ascertain the specifics of last night's events. We're now going live to a press conference at the camp. The broadcast transitioned to a live feed showing Agent Smith looking notably tired as he faced the cameras. "Our teams are in the midst of gathering and analyzing evidence to piece together the occurrences of last night," he stated. "How many got hurt or killed in the attack?" yelled one news person. "We're not saying anything about that yet until we've told their families," Smith answered. "Any who made it out or saw what happened?" another journalist asked. Smith just shook his head. "No," he said. "No one that we know of has come forward. We haven't found anyone alive there." "Could drugs have been a part of this?" a third journalist asked. "We're looking at every angle," Smith replied. "What about terrorism?" someone else called out. "Like I said before, we're checking into everything," Smith replied. "Is this tied to the old CEO Jacob Knight or to when interim CEO Lisa Knight was shot?" another asked. "We're not crossing anything off the list," Smith said. "If so, what does that mean for those other cases?" the first journalist asked. "That's a question for the federal lawyer handling those cases," Smith said. "I'm here to look into a possible crime, not guess about other ongoing cases." "Man, that Smith guy keeps his cool," Buster said. Everyone nodded. "Can you share how this was found out?" one journalist asked. "This place is out of the way, and it seems like the nearest person lives miles off." Smith turned to a local police deputy who took the stage. "Actually, the closest person is about 12 miles out," the deputy said. "He was outside when he thought he heard shots from this way. It took the police up to 1.5 hours to figure out this was where it happened." "Why so long?" someone asked. "Well, look around," the deputy said. "Not many roads here, not a lot of people. It's a big place out here. This isn't the city, you know." "Agent Smith, have you talked to any big shots at Night Oil?" a reporter asked. "No, I haven't," he replied. "We tried to reach out but got no answer." "That's strange, isn't it?" another reporter said. "There's a lot about this mess that's strange," he answered. "That's all for now. We'll let you know when we find out more. Thanks." He walked off and the camera went to a reporter outside. "We just heard from FBI agent John Smith. He said they are looking at different ideas but don't have much to tell us yet," the young lady said. "It's important to say that earlier, they found 2 broken SUVs with what looked like Mexico plates and a broken plane with Night Oil's name on it. This plane is known to carry important people for the company. Back to you, George." "Thanks, Sherry," the newsman said. "Now we're going to Central City to see if Night Oil has anything to say." The picture changed to a room ready for a news talk. A woman stood up to talk, ready with her notes. Sarah saw everyone was watching TV, so she started to bring in food. She put a mat on the table and a small plate for little Ryan. "Need help?" Bob asked. "No, I'm fine," she said. "Just watch the news." The men started eating as soon as the food was there. Ryan helped the young boy with his breakfast in front of the TV. The lady with brown hair stood up and looked at the crowd of news people. "As you all have heard, this morning news came out about a place run by Knight Petroleum being hit by some unknown people," she said, looking at her notes. "There have been talks about folks getting hurt, but we can't share names until we tell their families first. We're really sorry for their loss, and we'll try our best to help the families of those who were hurt. We're working with the big and small bosses in New Mexico to get to the bottom of this. We're ready for a few questions now." All the reporters put their hands up, and the lady picked one at the front. A story from The Spot said a broken Lear jet that belongs to Knight Petroleum was taken from the spot for checking. The reporter started. "From what your own records show, that jet is one among many you use to move big shots and VIPs around. Were any of your big shots or board members on that plane or at the spot when this happened? And if so, what's happened to them?" "I can't say," the lady answered. "Right now, I don't know who was on the plane. It might have been empty and just stopped there to get more fuel. Our pilots do that sometimes and often stay at the place to rest. We also have a few people there all the time for fixing things and keeping the place safe." "You don't know where your own big shots or board members are?" pushed the reporter. "I didn't say that," the lady said back. "I just said I don't know if any were on the plane or at the spot. Maybe there were no people there. But the flight plan we found showed the plane left here the day before yesterday, and it was supposed to go to New Mexico," another reporter said. "Also, the list we got showed there were 9 people on the plane, which is the most it can handle safely." "Why is that?" "I can't tell you that," the woman with brown hair said. "I need to check with the bosses to make sure that's true." "Why haven't we heard from your bosses, Mr. Elmer Jenkins?" another news person yelled. "Or any other boss?" "I can't say," the woman replied, making the news folks unhappy. Another one got up. "Lately, news from the UK said they found one of your bosses, Mr. Colin Blackstone, cut up and put in a bag in Manchester, England," the news person said. "What do you say to that?" "We just heard that news too," the woman said. "Mr. Blackstone had gone back to England for a family problem. We have no more to say except we are helping the police there solve this. That's all for today, thank you." She left the stage, looking upset. News folks kept asking questions, but she didn't answer. Ryan looked at Jorge and Bill. "Blackstone," Ryan said. "That's the man Timmy said got him to meet Jake, right?" Jorge nodded. "What?" Sarah asked. "Yeah," Ryan said. "Timmy was the one who shot Lisa. He said this Blackstone guy got him to see Jake, gave him the gun, told him what to do, and paid him. I asked Elmer about it, and he said Blackstone had to deal with a family thing." "Wow," Ian said. "I feel the same," Ryan said. "But there's another issue." "What's that?" Buster asked. "If Sheriff Coltrane saw the news, he'll want to know more," Ryan said. "Is that the sheriff who made us leave last night?" Jorge asked. Ryan nodded. "The very same," Ryan said. "Agent Smith and me talked right to him. Russell T. Coltrane might seem like a simple country cop, but he's sharp. He'll figure it out, and I bet he'll be on us soon." "We should head out then," Buster said. "I think so too," Ian added. "If Gunner gives me a hand, I can get the chopper ready in 15, Jim chimed in. "Bill and I need to go as well," Jorge mentioned. "He saw me and my van clear." Ryan paused for a beat, then nodded. "Okay," he said at last, "let's get going." They all stood and grabbed their stuff. Bob helped Jim with the chopper. Ryan walked Jorge and Bill to the van. "Can you do something for me?" Ryan asked Jorge. "Sure, anything," Jorge answered. "Tell me when Jake's next in court," Ryan asked. "He's up tomorrow," Jorge said. "I'll have Bill check the schedule on our way back and let you know." "From your van?" Ryan asked. Jorge grinned. "Yep," he said. "That's the beauty of being mobile. We can get on the net anywhere now. Welcome to now." All right, Ryan said. "Thanks. No sweat," Jorge said. "We'll keep you posted." They said bye and Ryan watched them leave. Back in the house, he saw Ian, Cap, and Buster ready to leave. Ryan shook their hands. "Thanks, fellas," Ryan said. "I'm real thankful for the help." "Don't mention it, mate," Ian replied. "Just don't forget to send us an invite to the wedding." "You bet," Ryan said. As they left in the chopper, Ryan watched the dirt kick up. When it cleared, he saw Bob coming towards the house. "Do you think Elmer had Blackstone killed?" Sarah asked, putting away dishes. Ryan nodded. "I think so," he said. "He was a problem that had to go." "What a mess," she said. "And to think Lisa was in on all that. What a letdown. She tricked us all." Ryan caught her calling her mother by her first name. It was the first time he heard her not say Mom. "She sure did," Ryan agreed. He glanced at little Ryan, who was on the sofa, glued to the TV. "I'm happy to see Ryan looking better." "Me too," Sarah replied. "He scared me so much last night. That Cap guy looked him over and said he'd be fine. But I still want to go after that woman for what she did to him." Ryan couldn't disagree, so he hugged her and kissed her forehead. "I get it," he said. "Look, I need to make some calls. I'll be just out front." "Got it, Dad," she answered. FBI agent John Smith looked over the remains of the camp. It seemed so different under the sunlight. He thought back to last night as he took in the mess. He winced at the sight of Elmer's charred skull in the fireplace of the building where he, Jorge, and Ryan had faced off with Jenkins, and was thankful that Ryan made him leave before things got worse. He knew Ryan had a tough reputation, but he hadn't truly grasped how ruthless Ryan could be. He'd seen stuff like this back when he was a SEAL, but not from his own team. Watching the crime scene team pick up and bag thousands of 7.62 mm casings, the type showered by Bob's minigun last night, hit him hard. He felt a bit sorry for those caught in that storm of bullets. Quite a few chunks of bodies were found around the place, and he doubted they could figure out who they were. There just wasn't enough of them left. They also found 2 crossbow bolts in 2 of the guards. He remembered firing one of those bolts himself, taking down a guard. He asked Jones, checking the bolts now in clear bags. "No prints," Jones said. "The person knew their stuff." Smith made a grunt sound. "Any cameras around?" Smith asked next. "They had cameras, but all the wires in the security hut were cut," Jones replied. "So no videos." Smith nodded, thinking Ryan was smarter than he first thought. "What about tracks from tires or shoes?" Smith asked. "No use," Jones told him. "The road was full of cars by the time I got here. They brought a huge truck to move the trees blocking the gate. Plus, with over 100 agents and police walking everywhere, any tracks that were there are now gone." Smith nodded as he thought about what they found at the camp. They saw a lot of bodies, some without clothes, mostly those caught in the middle of CC and shot. Smith and Agent Jones also found a lot of things made him wonder about the activities that happened here. They also discovered a lot of DVDs and papers, all packed up to look into later in El Paso. Many computers were also taken for a closer look. Agent Jones gave him a paper with a list of dead people. It had all the big names from Knight Petroleum, including Colin Blackstone, the whole board, and the top money guy. 4 names from Mexico were on it too, with 2 Smith knew as bad drug gang members from across the border. Why were they here, he thought. 8 women were on the list too, but no one knew who they were. He thought they might be folks who got paid for dates, taken over the border, or found in local spots, or both. "I've sent this off to El Paso," Jones told him. "They'll handle the calls. They'll talk to the Mexican office too." Smith just nodded. "Good," he said. "What's your guess, boss?" "Was it a bad drug deal?" Jones asked. Smith looked around before answering. "Could be," Smith said, even though he knew the real deal. "What's your take?" Jones thought a bit before speaking. "Seeing all the drugs, how brutal it was, and those folks from Mexico here, I'd think it's about drugs," Jones said. "Maybe a rival gang did this, and the people here were just caught up by mistake." Smith said. His voice was calm, but inside he was all over the place. He had worked for his country his whole life, first in the Navy as a SEAL, then as an FBI agent. Now he was hiding what he really did. He thought over the scene as he looked around. He knew how easily things could go wrong. One small fingerprint, a picture, or a bit of DNA could give it all away. He wondered if Ryan was really that careful. Could he have done all this and left no trace? "Anything else?" he asked Jones. Jones shook his head. "No, boss," he said. "That's all. It's on its way to El Paso." Smith thought more. Something bothered him. Ryan said there were no cars here before. The jet could take about 9 people. The 2 SUVs maybe 10 or 12. But what about the rest? From what he and Jones could tell, it looked like at least 15 people were here all the time. Surely those people wouldn't be left here without a way to leave. "Okay, time to go," he said. "I need some sleep." "Got it, boss," Jones replied. After making his calls, Ryan went inside. Sarah and little Ryan were playing by the pool, so he headed to his office. He knew he had to get rid of what was left from last night's job, so he took apart the guns he and Smith used, cleaned them good, and put them in a box. He had to dump them, but how? He grabbed his desert camo and gloves, seeing the dried blood. His boots had blood on them too. He stuffed it all in a bag and took it to an incinerator near his shooting spot, where he burned trash. He threw in the clothes with his trash and started it, hoping it would work. He buried the box of gun bits near the range, hiding it under the dirt. He knew he'd have to move them later, but for now, they were out of the house. He had just cleaned up when a car drove up. It was Sheriff Coltrane. He checked for any left-out bad stuff, then went to meet him. "Morning, Sheriff," Ryan said, stepping out. "What can I do for you today?" The sheriff came up and they shook hands. "Want something? Coffee? Tea?" "No, but thanks," he said. "Can we talk?" "Sure," Ryan said. "Mind if I smoke?" "Your place," the sheriff said. "Mind if I have one too?" Go ahead, Ryan offered, lighting a cigarette. How's Beverly? The sheriff asked. She's good, thanks, Ryan said. She was out with the eggs this morning. Yep, saw her near the Jennings, the sheriff said. You both okay? Yeah, I asked her to marry me, Ryan shared. She said yes. That's great, Sheriff Coltrane said. Happy for you both. I saw you got home okay last night. All good? All good, thanks, Ryan replied. He sensed the sheriff was hinting at something more. Seen the news today? The sheriff asked. Ryan knew what was next. About that trouble in New Mexico? Ryan said. Yeah, I saw it. Interesting, the FBI guy on TV is who I talked to last night, Sheriff Coltrane said. Looking at my map, that camp is not far from where I saw you at the state line. You know anything about that? Ryan didn't know what to think. He paused, then spoke up, hoping he chose right. They had my girl and her boy, Ryan whispered. They were going to hurt her, then trade her off, and worse for the boy, if the feds didn't stop going after Night Petroleum. Ryan tried to read the sheriff's face. What would you do if it were your girl, your grandkid? Ryan, the sheriff started. If it were me, I'd do anything to save them. He looked serious. Look, Ryan, I'm just a local sheriff, but I'm not dumb, he said, dropping his accent. Ryan was puzzled. I guessed it was something big. I just wish you'd told me straight. Ryan nodded. So, what's next for you? Ryan asked. Sheriff Coltrane shook his head. Can't do much even if I wanted to, which I don't, he said. That FBI guy made me keep quiet, remember? Plus, no law says you can't drive a van at night here. As far as I see it, you helped us out by taking them out. Ryan smiled, hearing the accent come back. Who was this guy, really? Talking about the law, the sheriff added. Ever think about joining law enforcement? Ryan laughed. For real, he said. I'm old and got just one eye. The sheriff laughed too. Old, he said. I'm older than you. And look at this, he said, showing his fake leg. So why ask me, Ryan said. I know nothing about being a cop, and I'm too old to start now. Good news is, you don't have to start at the bottom to be a sheriff here, the sheriff said. The county board picks the sheriff based on what the people suggest. But why are you leaving, Ryan asked. I'm thinking of retiring soon, the sheriff said. Been thinking who could take my spot. You got deputies better for it than me, Ryan said. True, they're all right, Sheriff Coltrane said. One even worked for the LAPD, but none of them want the job, I asked. So why me, Ryan asked. People here like you, the sheriff said. They say you're decent, and I think so too. Plus, you're respected. Trust me, it's safer than your old job. Ryan stared at him, amazed. Yep, the sheriff said. I know your past. You're not the only one with pals, you know. Does Beverly know? She does, Ryan said. And she's okay with it? Ryan nodded. Well, there you go, the sheriff said. Will you help me if I do this? Ryan asked. Sure, Sheriff Coltrane said. I'm not going to leave you out there alone. I need to sort some things out and talk to Beverly first, Ryan said. That sounds right, the sheriff said. How soon do you need to know? Ryan asked. In a few days is fine. Just don't take too long, the sheriff said. Let me know and I'll tell the board good things about you. By the way, when are you and Beverly going to tie the knot? We haven't picked a day yet, Ryan said. I'd like to come, the sheriff said. I think a lot of her. She's had a hard time. You're invited, Ryan said. Why don't you come in and meet my daughter and grandson? I'd like that, he said. And call me Russell. Okay, Russell, Ryan said. They went inside and found Bob, Sarah, and little Ryan in the kitchen. Sarah looked up when they came in. Bob, Sarah, this is Sheriff Russell Coltrane, Ryan introduced. Russell, meet my daughter Sarah, her man Bob, and my grandson Ryan. Russell smiled, hugged Sarah, and shook Bob's hand. He bent down to say hi to little Ryan, but the boy clung to Sarah's leg. It's okay, little guy, Russell said. I'm a pal of your granddad. Little Ryan looked at Sarah, then at Ryan, who smiled and nodded. Slowly, he let go of Sarah's leg and reached out his hand. Russell smiled, took the boy's hand in his, and gently shook it. Russell stood and looked at Sarah. You've got a fine boy there, he said. Sarah smiled a bit worried and said thanks. It's okay, dear, Ryan said. He knows. Russell nodded. You all good? Russell asked her. Yes, we're okay, thank you, she said. Good to hear, Russell said. Are you going to? She started, but Russell shook his head. You gonna lock up my dad? He finished her ask. She just nodded. He shook his head. No way. I'd do the same if it were my kid. Heck, I want your dad to be the new boss when I leave. For real? She was taken back. I can't pick a better man for keeping this place safe, Russell said. Wow, she grinned. Dad is the sheriff. Ryan just moved his shoulders. You up for it, Dad? Bob chimed in. Got to chat with Beverly and tie up some ends, but yeah, I'm leaning that way, said Ryan. Well, hats off, Sheriff. Bob reached out and Ryan smiled, shaking his hand. Time I head out, Russell stated. Nice meeting you all. Good to meet you, Sheriff, said Bob. Ryan showed Russell to the door just as Beverly pulled up. They met outside. Hi, Beverly, greeted Russell. Hi, Sheriff, she returned. All okay? All's good, Ryan said. He's in the loop. She glanced at Russell, uneasy. Don't fret, Russell assured. So, you're not arresting Ryan? She sought clarity. Arrest him? Russell chuckled. No way, I'm thinking he should be the next sheriff. Her eyes widened. Really? She gasped. Well, it's up to the council, but if it's my call, yes, Russell clarified. I haven't agreed yet, Ryan cut in. Wanted to talk with you first. Thanks for that, she said. Though, I think it's a smart move, plus gets you out more, she teased with a smile. Russell joined in the laughter, then added, Also here congrats are due, he said. Your dad would have been proud. Thanks, she replied. Then her expression shifted. Oh no, who will walk me down at my wedding, she worriedly asked. Ryan shared a look with her, then they both eyed Russell. Beverly spoke up first. Sheriff, I feel bad asking, but would you? What? Lead you down the aisle? I'd be happy to, Beverly, Russell said. That is, if Ryan's okay with it. Not at all, Ryan said. I can't think of anyone better. Then it's set, Russell said. Beverly hugged him and pecked him on the cheek. Thanks a lot, she said. You're welcome, he said, but only if you start calling me Russell. I will, I mean Russell, she said. Well, I must go, Russell said, opening his car door. Have a good day, okay? We will, Russell, Ryan said, and I'll call you when I'm back. I need to talk more about this before I decide. All right, Ryan, Russell said. See ya. They waved as Russell drove away. Ryan helped her with her stuff into the house and made her a glass of tea. So what happened, she asked when he gave her the tea. Did you catch the news this morning, Ryan asked. I caught a bit on the radio, she said. They said it might be a drug gang or something. As I thought, Russell heard the news and figured it out, Ryan said. He came to see me about it. I thought he was going to take me in, but he didn't. Said Smith made him promise not to tell. He also said he knows about my past. He could have taken me in, but he chose not to. Instead, he wants me to take his job when he stops. It seems like someone's got your back, Beverly said. Seems so, he said. So, how was your day? It was good, she said. Got 2 more clients today. Nice, Ryan said. By the way, I booked flights to bring the kids back this afternoon. Didn't want to go till you were back. I'm glad for that, she said. Sorry I didn't wake you this morning, but I thought you'd be too worn out. I was beat. Thanks, I get that, but you still should have woken me, he said. I'd have for sure helped you. I get it, but you needed sleep, she said. And speaking of sleep, I'm beat. Okay if I head home and sleep? Go for it, he said. You need a good sleep. Thanks, she said, getting up. He hugged her close and kissed her long. I love you lots, he said. She smiled and kissed him back. I love you more, she said. Call me later, all right? I want to know you're home safe. I will, he said. Go on home. Later you can show me those short shorts again. Maybe I'll make a new set just for you, she said with a fun look. They hugged for a bit, gazing into each other's eyes. Hey guys, Sarah yelled from the kitchen. Little Eyes here. Ryan and Beverly grinned and looked at Sarah holding little Ryan. The boy looked at Beverly a bit scared. Beverly walked over and softly touched his hair. Sorry, we've not really met, Beverly said. Are you Grandpa's friend? Little Ryan asked. Yes, she is, Sarah said. Actually, she's going to be your new grandma. The boy stared at Beverly, puzzled. You're going to be my new grandma, he asked. Beverly smiled and nodded. Yes, I am, she said. Is that okay? The boy thought and then spoke. Will you help Grandpa find his eye? He asked. If he wants me to? Yes, Beverly said. Ryan seemed to think hard. Then he looked at her. All right, he said. You can be my new grandma. Beverly smiled and hugged him. Thank you, she said. This means a lot. You're welcome, he said. Beverly stood up and looked at Sarah. He's a sweet boy, she said. Reminds me of my own son. Well, I'm going to head home for some sleep. Sure, Mom, you deserve it, Sarah said, hugging her. Beverly's eyes got wet when she heard Sarah say, Mom. They hugged, then Beverly walked to the door. Don't forget to ring, she said as she left. I won't, love, Ryan replied. He gave her a kiss. Sleep well, okay? Don't worry, I'll be out like a light, she said. He watched her go to her car. He waved goodbye and saw her wave back. She's going to be good for you, Dad, Sarah called out from the kitchen. I feel it. I think so, Ryan said. Well, are we all set to head out? The plane's at 2 o'clock. Just a sec, Bob said. I'm on it. Come on, we gotta move, Ryan urged. Coming, Bob yelled. Ryan shook his head. Kids, he joked. One scrape and they think they're invincible. Sarah laughed. Nice to see you smile, Dad, she said. He gave her a hug. Bob came down with his bag. Okay, I'm good, Bob said. Let's go. Sarah giggled as Ryan gave her a playful glare. He made sure the doors were locked and grabbed his bag, then followed Sarah and Bob out. When they got to the truck, Ryan's phone buzzed. It was a text from Agent Smith. Tired day, it read. Check the news tonight. Wild stuff. Call me later. Too old for this. Ryan smiled and put his phone away, curious about what Smith meant. They went into the airport, got their tickets, and walked to security. His phone buzzed again. It was Bill calling. Hey, Ryan said. Just found out Jake has to show up in court at 8 o'clock tomorrow, Bill said. Also saw they'll fix the cameras all day tomorrow. Seems they think there might be big trouble. Got it, Ryan said. Useful info. Bill thought so too, Bill said. So how did it go with the sheriff? He got it, Ryan said. What? And you're not in jail? Bill asked. Nope, Ryan said. Actually, he wants me to be the new sheriff. Wow, Bill said. You're lucky. Tell me, Ryan said. We're about to get on our flight now. I'll call you later. Oh, Smith sent a text. Said to watch the news tonight. Maybe you can see it while you're driving. Okay, will do, Bill said. That's all they've been on about today. Night petroleum is going down on the market. Good for them, Ryan said. Talk later. Okay, boss, talk later, Bill said, hanging up. They got comfortable in their seats and were fast asleep as the plane flew. When the plane landed, they got off, picked up their bags, and went to rent a car. Ryan picked a simple car. They reached Bob and Sarah's house. Ryan and Bob packed everything away. Luckily, most of the bad stuff from the kidnap was cleaned, but the house still smelled like bleach. Sarah opened the windows to let fresh air in. Bob got 2 beers, gave one to Ryan. They sat in the living room and turned on the news. They listened to some local stories, but they were really interested when the breaking news came on. We just got this, the newsperson said. The government has named those who died in a raid at a New Mexico place owned by Knight Petroleum. The dead include 6 of the 7 people who run the company, including Elmer Jenkins, the top guy. This follows news from the UK that another company person, Colin Blackstone, was found dead in Manchester, the news said. Next up, we found out the money boss of Knight Oil was found dead in New Mexico. Over to Brenda Carpenter, who's in El Paso for us. Brenda's standing outside a big building, likely in El Paso, Texas. Thanks, Jerry, she starts. We talked to the feds and they told us that along with the Knight leaders, 4 folks from Mexico were also killed in New Mexico. They also found a big pile of drugs and guns at the place, making them think a drug gang was involved. Then we see Smith on the TV, wearing super dark sunglasses. We're still looking at all the stuff we found, Smith tells us. But for now, we think the place was hit by a drug gang. Is it true that there were bad parties and people being traded at the site? One newsperson asked. It looks that way from what we've found, Smith answers. There's word that 2 of your guys were killed in Central City, another asks. They were guarding the boss's daughter of Lisa Knight, the boss of Knight, who was shot at work. Can you say that's true, and if it's tied to this mess? I can say yes, Smith replies. It seems everything touching Knight is linked in some way. We go back to Brenda. Agent Smith says they're digging through lots of clues that show the bosses were up to no good. It's like we're just starting to see how deep this goes. Back to you, Jerry, she says. Thanks, Brenda, Jerry says. Next, let's head over to Andrew Conrad, who's right outside the court where the once big boss, Jacob Knight, who's now in a lot of hot water, will show up again tomorrow. What's the scoop, Andrew? Yes, Jerry, Mr. Knight, now in a wheelchair after a bad street attack, is due here tomorrow, Andrew shared. I got a moment with Marvin Morrison, the main lawyer against him. The scene on the screen shifts to show a tall, skinny guy with lots of curls talking to the reporter. The stuff we found shows us these top dogs at Knight Oil did more wrong stuff and hiding it than making oil and gas, Marvin shared. And I bet we're just starting. Are you going to charge them more? Andrew wants to know. Marvin's look gets tough as he answers. For sure, he says, and even more after that. Will you talk to the other big bosses? Asked Andrew. Yes, Marvin says, we've already begun those talks and we're also looking at the smaller bosses now. The other side has been good at stopping you so far, Andrew points out. How will you deal with that? Well, Andrew, Marvin says, you're right, they've been tricky. But I think that's going to change tomorrow. What kind of charges are you thinking? Andrew probes. Big charges, says Marvin. That's all I'll say for now. You'll see in the morning. So, Jerry, Andrew says after Marvin leaves, seems like we're in for quite a show tomorrow. Thanks, Andrew, Jerry says. We'll be tuned in. He turns to another camera. The charges against Knight Oil also shook the stock market today as their shares fell, making many people worried. Now, over to Tyler Morgan, our money expert, for more. Tyler, what's going to happen? Jerry asked, his eyes wide. Tyler popped up on the screen. Well, Jerry, he said, Knight Petroleum is hanging by a thread. If no one steps in soon, it'll all come crashing down, and that's bad news for everyone around the world. Got any leads? Jerry poked. I've heard whispers, but nothing solid yet, Tyler shared. No, you'll tell us first, Tyler, Jerry replied, turning back to the audience. Next up, a dog takes a wild ride. Stick with us on Eyewitness News. Bob hit the off switch on the TV as it cut to ads. You're the brainy one, Bob, Ryan said. What's your take? Knight Petroleum is in deep trouble, Bob grimly predicted. Won't last another month, I bet. Ryan nodded, thinking the same. Grabbing his phone, Ryan dialed Smith, who picked up right away. Hey, Smith, Ryan said, getting straight to the point. Caught the news. Is it all true? You wouldn't believe the mess we found, Smith told him. If we hadn't jumped in when we did, things would have gone south. What did you find? Ryan pressed. Crazy stuff, Ryan, Smith said. Tons of drugs, DVDs of wild parties, maybe with kids too young, links to drug gangs, signs of people being bought and sold. And I think I got why no one looked into Gillespie's death. Hold up, Ryan stopped him. There was a spy? Yeah, Smith confirmed. A big fish. We've got him now. Anything tying Lisa to this mess? Ryan asked. Nothing solid, Smith admitted. She might have been in the dark, too caught up in her world or too dazzled by Jake's wealth to see. Hard to say. So what's the news? Ryan said. Sheriff Coltrane figured it out this morning, he added. Came to see me after everyone left. Really? Smith was curious. And he didn't arrest you? Nope, Ryan answered. He wants me to be the new sheriff when he quits. Smith chuckled. Wow, you're lucky, he said. You gonna take it? Thinking about it, Ryan replied. Got some stuff to sort out first. I might come asking for work with you then, Smith said. You leaving your job? Ryan asked. Thinking on it, Smith said. The place isn't the same anymore. Maybe you should lead it, fix it up, Ryan suggested. Maybe, not sure. It's all a big game now. How's Beverly and the kids? Smith changed the subject. They're good, Ryan said. You coming to the wedding? Wouldn't miss it, Smith said. I'll call later. Stay safe, okay? Got it, Ryan said. Bye. After hanging up, Ryan left to call Beverly. He returned with a big grin. Sarah saw it and joined him where he was playing with little Ryan. You called Mom? She guessed. Ryan just nodded. Yes, he said, tickling the boy. How did you know? Well, you went to call and came back smiling big, she said. It's nice to see you happy again. You were that way with Lisa. Ryan saw her tear up. He hugged her as she started to cry. I'm sorry, Daddy, she sobbed. I was so mean, and you still saved my life. Twice. I don't deserve you. It's okay, my girl, he whispered. Back when you were young and easy to sway, they saw that and took their chance. But you got wise. You turned your life around. I'm proud of how far you've come. You've got a great family, and I'll always stand by you. Thanks, Dad, she said, her voice wobbly. I love you. Love you too, he replied. Guess I should start on dinner, she said, and then she went to the kitchen. Ryan turned back to his little grandson, who giggled loud as he got tickled again. That night, Ryan dreamt about sunny fields and laughing blonde girls in short shorts and plain shirts. The next day, the court got crowded fast as news folks, people who might talk in the trial, and those just watching filled it up. No one really looked at the tall guy in the back row. He had on a dark hat, sunshades, and a cloth over the bottom of his face, looking like a few others there. Due to rules to keep space between folks, everyone sat a bit apart. He watched as Jake got rolled in, his middle wrapped in chains. The lawyers came in and got ready, and the court person told everyone to stand as the judge came in. After the judge nodded, everyone sat down again. He listened to the lawyers go back and forth with their fancy talks and tricky moves. To him, it mostly sounded like nonsense, just a bunch of sounds with not many real words that he could pick out. But he did catch what the judge said last. We'll do it later, the judge said. Marvin tried to speak up, but the judge hit his gavel. We're done till tomorrow morning at 9, he announced. That's it. Marvin, looking annoyed, threw his papers on his desk as Jake had a mean grin. The guards came to take him away, but no one saw the man had already left the room. No one saw either when the man waited at the cross of two halls, looking at Jake and his guards. I got to go to the bathroom, Jake said. One guard shook his head and sent the other to check. The second guard looked in the bathroom, saw no one under the big stall, then came out. No one saw a tall man with a baseball cap leave the place. It's all clear, the second guard said. Jake looked at the first guard. Let me loose, will you? I'm gonna mess myself, and I'm stuck in this chair. Just need a minute alone. Fine, fine, the first guard said, taking off the chains. But be quick. Sure, sure, Jake said, rolling into the bathroom. He wheeled to the big stall at the end, opened it, and went in. He was shocked to find a tall man with a baseball cap, dark glasses, and bandana in the corner. Jake wondered why the man wore an old apron, gloves, and shoe covers. It hit Jake who it was. He remembered the threat. If you ever hurt Lisa or anyone I care about, I'll find you. Cut off your head and give it to the pigs. Jake went pale and scared as he knew what was coming. He wanted to speak but couldn't. His chest felt tight and he tried to take one last breath as the man watched. Jake put a hand to his chest, trying hard to breathe. But Jake never woke up. He fell over in his chair, out cold. The guy took off his shades to look at Jake closer with his one good eye, not touching him. He'd seen enough folks pass to know Jake was gone for good. Whether to a better place or not, who could say? He stared at his own face in the mirror. The fake eye and the scar on his face made him think of a movie character. He put his dark glasses on again and turned to leave. Bending down, he jumped to the window ledge and climbed on. He opened the window just a bit to check the messy alley. All clear, he climbed out, shut the window softly, and landed with ease. He left the apron, hat, boot covers, glasses, and gloves in the drain holes as he walked. About 15 minutes later, the guards at the bathroom door decided Jake had been in there too long. I swear he does this every time, one guard complained. Go check on him. Sure, the other said, and soon came out. Call 911, we need help now, he said. What? The first guard was shocked. He radioed for help as he went in. Finding Jake's still form on the floor, he checked but found no pulse. No sign anyone else was in there made him think Jake had a heart attack. Serves him right, he muttered. When the medics came, he went to check the cameras to see if they caught anything fishy. If anyone was near this spot, the cameras would show it. Sadly for him, the security was off. No videos taken of that area. They were fixing stuff, ready for riots maybe happening tonight or the next. Oh well, he thought. He went back to the bathroom and saw them taking Jake's body away, covered up. He's gone, a medic said. Off to the examiner, but we think it was a heart stop. The guard just nodded. Ryan got back into his car, saw some time left for parking. He put his patch on, wore his old hat, then lit a smoke and took a deep breath, glad he didn't have to deal with Jake. After he knew he had more places to go before heading back to Bob and Sarah's. Soon he was at the place where Lisa was staying. Sarah told him she'd be here a while for help. Talking was hard for her now and moving not easy, but he knew she'd get what he said. He took the DVD and went inside. Inside, he found her room. She tried to talk when she saw him, but he stopped her. Don't talk, Lisa, he said. Just listen. She looked sad but did as told. He sat close, looking at her. She used to shine bright. Now that was gone. You almost had me tricked, he told her. She looked shocked. I nearly believed your story. But you know, almost doesn't count much except in some games. For a bit, I almost thought you were telling the truth. I gotta say, the food was a nice touch. Almost got me. And the phone? That was slick. But guess what? Elmer copied it and filled it with spying stuff. She shook her head. The thing is, Lisa, I can't trust you, he said. I'll never be able to trust you again. That's what happens when you cheat and lie. He stopped, letting it sink in before going on. When I heard you got shot, I ran over fast. What I found out next really hurt. That's when I found out your own team planned with Jake to have someone try to kill you. Her eyes got big. Seems like you didn't know they were after you, did you? Big mistake by Elmer. He scared Sarah, Bob, and little Ryan. He also told me about your moves, not just with Jake, but with the whole darn board. And this was going on way before you said things started with Jake. He threw a DVD on her bed. That's for when you're bored, Ryan said. Elmer says this has all the main bits of your time being the company toy for Night Petroleum. I heard all about your fun times in New Mexico, being the star of the show. He saw a tear roll down her cheek but kept going. Yeah, I've seen it, he said. Bob and Sarah have too. He paused, letting it weigh on her. Sarah's not feeling good about you right now, especially since you were planning to drag her into your messed up world. Lisa dropped her head as more tears came. Elmer took Sarah and little Ryan, Ryan added. Did you know about that? She looked up, shocked, and shook her head. They're safe now, he said. No thanks to you, but looks like Night Petroleum doesn't have a board anymore. And the FBI told me they found a ton of proof of all sorts of bad stuff your company did, from moving people to drugs, arms, and who knows what else. I don't know if you were in on any of that. She shook her head and said no without a sound, but Ryan kept going. They haven't found proof you did those bad things yet. But that might change, he said. You might not have done what Elmer, Jake, and the others did, but you could still get in trouble for helping them. I'd find a lawyer to make a deal if I were you. You might not get in trouble if you help the police. Knight Petroleum is pretty much done for now. You should know there's a big legal fight against Jake and his stuff. Turns out, I'm one of about 100 guys whose lives got messed up by him. I don't know all the law stuff, but my lawyer from home knows the law here too, and he found a way to make the fight happen, Ryan added. I wouldn't plan any big trips if I were you. Even if Jake's lawyers win, it'll cost him all his money. Tears ran down her face as she looked at him. I'm really sorry, she barely said. Ryan nodded. Yeah, but that doesn't help me much now, he said, making her cry more. You asked if we could be friends. That won't happen. I can't be friends with someone who hurt me, but I've met someone amazing, and we're going to marry soon. He showed her a photo on his phone of him and Beverly close together. She cried more seeing it. She's pretty, right? Ryan said. Her name is Beverly, and she's made me feel so good, better than I've ever felt. I thought I wouldn't love again, but then she came along. She even helped save Sarah and little Ryan. Sarah calls her mom now, and Ryan seems to like her too. She'll be a great grandma, right? Lisa shook with sobs. He stood up. You might not see me again, he said. And I think Sarah and Bob will cut ties with you, he added as she cried. Losing everything stinks, huh? But hey, what goes around comes around. Have fun with what's left of your life. Bye. He put his hat on and left the room. He heard her loud cries as he walked away and saw nurses run to her room. He didn't look back but walked straight to his car. He stopped one more place, then drove back to Bob and Sarah's. He saw George's car there and wondered why. Holding a small box he just got, he went in and met George, Bob, and Sarah. Did you hear the news? Sarah asked. No, what? Ryan replied. Jake Knight died from a heart attack, Bob said. A heart attack? Ryan echoed. When? Just after the hearing this morning, said Bob. Well, that's something, Ryan said. Did you have a hand in it? Jorge asked. Ryan shook his head. Not at all, Ryan said. Jorge eyed him closely. I mean it, Ryan said. I never laid a finger on him. So what were you up to? Sarah asked. Ryan took out the box and showed them a pricey ring set. I got this for Beverly and visited Lisa, Ryan said, not mentioning his courtroom trip. That's gorgeous, Sarah said. I hope she likes it, he said. She will, Dad, Sarah said. So you saw Lisa? Yeah, Ryan said. I showed her the DVD Elmer gave me, talked about all her lies and told her about Knight and Beverly. I don't think she took it too well. Well, that's just too bad, Sarah said with a bit of a joke in her voice. Ryan gave a smile and a nod. You won't hear me fight that, princess, he said. Later on, Sarah got dinner on the table and everyone sat down to eat. They asked Jorge to stay, so he did. After a nice meal, they all moved to the living room. Tonight, they're showing a special on Jake, Bob mentioned. Might be interesting to see what they say about his life and work. Why not watch? Ryan asked. Sarah came in with a bunch of sweet tea glasses, and they started watching the show, which was just beginning. I really like this show, Bob said. I like how it talks about business. Ryan just made a sound and nodded. He didn't get the appeal, but he figured everyone likes different things. They all started to watch the show closely. Good evening, and welcome to our special edition, said a young man with curly dark hair. Tonight, we're going to look into the life of Jacob Knight, the ex-boss of Knight Petroleum, who was said to have planned harm against his ex-wife and her old husband. As you might know, Mr. Knight passed away today from a heart attack. We have with us tonight author and reporter Trevor Whitaker, who's about to release a book on Knight called From Riches to Oil Rags, The Rise and Fall of Jacob Knight. Welcome, Mr. Whitaker. Thanks for having me, Neil, said an older man in a neat gray suit. I don't like to talk bad about those who've passed. So first, I want to say we're thinking of Jacob Knight's friends and family. Our hearts go out to them. Trevor, what do you think about all this? Neil asked. Like you, Neil, I'd rather not talk bad about the dead, Trevor said. But to be honest, in this case, I don't think many would mind too much if you did. That doesn't sound very kind, Neil said. Why did you say that? Well, to tell the truth, Mr. Knight was not someone who made you think good stuff, Trevor said. Didn't some folks like him? Neil asked. Quite the opposite, Neil. My digging for the last few years shows no one liked him. Not a bit. Even his own family wasn't fond of him, Trevor shared. One person who worked with Knight a long time told me, and this is from my book, look up Meanie in the book and you'll see Jacob Knight's picture. That's what they said. Wow, Neil said. So why did this person stay with him? Knight paid him a lot, Trevor said. and the guy was really scared of what Knight might do if he left. Knight saw it as you're with me or against me. Leaving him didn't seem smart. I get it, Neil said. Now about the case, Knight was said to, among other things, plan to kill his now ex-wife's first husband. We found out their split was 12 years ago and seemed okay. No asking for money, even though they had a teen girl. No asking for spouse money, and she let him keep everything. Why would Knight want to harm the guy after so long? He had the wife and kid. Why hire someone to kill him? To get that, you need to know the man, Trevor said. Years back, I was in Knight's office for an interview about his business growing fast. On his desk, there was a sign that said, "Kill them all. Let God sort them out." That's Jacob Knight for you. That's how he ran his business, and that's how he lived. If he wanted something, he'd go all out to get it. That means businesses, land, even women. Women? Neil asked. Yeah, Trevor said. In that way, Jacob Knight was way worse than some past president. If he liked a woman, he'd do anything to get her. I've talked to lots of guys whose homes and love lives he wrecked. For him, it was like hunting big animals. I get it, Neil said. So why'd he go after this guy? Well, Neil, it looks like the guy's ex-husband was working for an oil firm overseas that Knight wanted to take over, Trevor explained. Knight's way of dealing in business was kind of, nice place you got, shame if something bad happened. He liked to tempt with one hand and scare with the other. About 4 years back, Knight aimed at that foreign rival. That's when he found out the ex-husband worked there, Trevor said. Knight thought he could hit 2 targets with 1 shot and sent hitmen after the guy, the court files say. But remember, this is all from the guy Knight was after, so a judge kept it quiet. I found it odd that the divorce papers were kept secret by the judge, and the info we got from a document request was all hidden, Neil said. The names and places gone. The federal lawyer said it was to keep the man safe, Trevor said. The defense is all over this, wanting the guy's name out and him in court to talk. Given all that's gone down, it's good the judge held firm. So Knight went for him. Just 'cause? Neil asked. Yep, Trevor said. Knight didn't need a reason. He did what he wanted, no more, no less. What now? Neil asked. Just 'cause the big shots, Knight included, are gone, doesn't mean it's all over. Sure, charges against them don't count now, but the guy who shot Lisa Knight is talking to the cops for a lighter sentence. Still, he might end up behind bars. And the feds are still poking around Knight's business. They might charge Miss Knight too, so this thing could keep going. And the company? Neil asked. Like you know, Neil, the company's value tanked, Trevor said. People are selling their shares quick to cut loss. If nothing changes soon, the company's done for. I've heard there might be a plan, but no one's told me for sure. I see, Neil said. Thanks, Trevor. You've shown a new light. Thanks, Neil, Trevor said. Next, will Knight Petroleum mess with your retirement? We'll talk to a top money advisor soon. Don't go away, Neil said before the ads came. Wow, Bob said. Had no clue it was this dire. It is, Ryan said. Well, this was fun, but I gotta call home and sleep. You want me to watch things here? Jorge asked. If you can, Ryan said. I think the worst has passed, but you never know. Got it, George said. Well, thanks for dinner, but I gotta go. Catch you later. Ryan said bye to everyone, and then he went up to call Beverly and slept. The next day, he got up early, had food, and said a warm bye to Bob, Sarah, and little Ryan. After goodbyes and promising to share his wedding news, Ryan left for the airport. On his way, he saw a big church and felt he had to stop. He hadn't visited a church since Sarah's baptism, but felt pulled to it. He parked and went in. He lit a candle for his lost friends and sat at the back, noticing he and a priest were alone in there. He felt he should kneel, and as he did, he thought of Dawson and others lost in war. As he knelt, head down, hands together, he thought of all his feelings since the day Lisa and Sarah went away. All his anger, sadness, and lost hope came out. He cried for what he lost and was thankful for what he had. Then he looked at the big cross above and thought about what it stood for. As he sat, a young Latino man in priest clothes sat by him. Is everything okay, my son? He asked quietly. Ryan half smiled. He was much older. He kept quiet, unusual for him, and looked at the priest. He nodded. Yeah, it's okay now, Father, he said. Thanks. Then may peace from God, which is beyond all, be with you, my son, the priest said and did the cross sign. Thanks again, Ryan said. Both stood up. If you need anything, prayer, saying sorry, talk, just ask, the priest said. I think I'm all right now, Father, Ryan said. But thanks. I'll still pray for you, my son, the priest said, nodding. I feel like you're starting something new and you'll need all the help you can, the priest said. Do you need my name? Ryan asked. The priest just smiled and shook his head. "God knows it, my boy," he said. Ryan nodded. "Guess so," he said. "Thanks." The priest smiled, nodded, and walked to the big altar. Ryan took his hat and left. When he stepped into the bright sun, he took a deep breath. He felt reborn. He chuckled to himself, got in his car, and drove to the airport. He called Beverly when his plane landed, threw his bag in the truck, and started driving home. He felt better than he had in a long time. Everything looked new, like he was seeing it for the first time. When he got home, Beverly was waiting on the porch. His eyes widened when he saw her. She was always pretty, he thought, but her shorts were the shortest he had seen. They had holes in the front and were very short. Her top barely covered her. "You're a great sight," he told her as he hugged her. They kissed for a long time. When they stopped kissing, she touched the front of his jeans, where he was very hard. "Lunch is by the pool if you're hungry," she said with a teasing smile. "Show me," he said. As he followed her, he noticed her shorts showed almost everything. When they got to the pool, he expected to see food somewhere. He looked around but saw nothing. "Where's lunch?" he asked. "Right here," she said from behind. He turned and saw her on the deck, not wearing anything. "If you want me," she said. "Oh yes," he said as he hugged her. They shared love on the deck, basking in the sun and each other. When they stopped, he stood up and picked up his pants. "I almost slipped my mind," he said. "I picked up a small gift for you." He grabbed the box from his pocket and opened it. Her eyes got big as she saw the rings. "They're pretty," she said. He took the engagement ring out and softly put it on her finger. She smiled as a tear came to her eye. "I adore it," she said. "And I adore you." "I adore you too," he said. She looked into his eyes for a bit, then spoke again. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You kind of seem, I don't know, changed." "Actually, I am," he said. "I feel like I'm a new man starting fresh." She smiled and kissed him again. "I'm so happy," she said. "I think we've both known too much sadness for too long, right?" "Yes," he said. "I totally agree." I also got another thing." "What?" she asked. He went inside and pulled a box from his bag. He handed it to her and watched her open it. She took out a metal chicken made to hang on the wall. "I love it," she said. "Why did you think to get this?" "I'm not sure," he said. "I saw it and you came to mind. I thought it's time we start adding stuff on the walls, make it feel like a home again." "I think that's smart," she said. "And I know just where it should go." He smiled, hearing that. Yes, he thought. Home, sweet home. For real this time. After they got dressed and hung the chicken in the kitchen, he called Russell. "Hey, Ryan," Russell said. "Did you get all sorted?" "Yes, I did. And I'd like to talk to you about that job," Ryan said. "Great," Russell said. "Come over and we'll chat." "Will do," Ryan said. After telling Beverly, he cleaned up and went to town, stopping in front of the sheriff's office. He walked in and saw the deputies looking him over. "Sheriff Coltrane is waiting for you, Mr. Caldwell," the deputy in uniform said, guiding him towards Russell's room. She opened the door, let him in, and then walked out, shutting it behind her. Russell stood up and shook his hand. "Take a seat," Russell told him. Ryan sat down across from him. "Got any questions?" "Yes," Ryan said. "I've got one." "What about my past? You seem to know what I've been up to for 9 years. Russell grinned. "You mean your job as a private security expert?" Russell teased, using his hands to make air quotes around private security expert. "That's the one," Ryan replied. "Well, 9 years teaching security folks how to handle tough stuff. That's big if you ask me," Russell said. "And your time in the Army was top-notch. The county board thinks so too." "What?" Ryan was surprised. "Yep," Russell continued. "They believe you can show our deputies a few tricks." "I never thought about that," Ryan said, thinking it over. "Don't sweat it," Russell reassured him. "I checked your background, just a routine thing. They just want to be sure you're not a baddie on the run. You've never been in jail, and everything looks good. Heck, on paper, you're cleaner than some of my deputies. So, if you're up for it, there's an interview with the board. But it's pretty much just for show. I'd say dress up a bit and maybe get a new hat." "What about my beard?" Ryan asked. "As long as you keep it tidy, it's no issue," Russell said. "It adds to your look." Ryan cracked a smile. "You've got everything sorted, huh?" he asked. "It's part of the job," Russell said with a nod. "Once they say yes, we'll get you a uniform and you can start learning from me. So, what do you think?" "Why not?" Ryan decided. "The worst they can say is no, let's do it." "That's the spirit," Russell encouraged. "Let's meet early in the morning, like 8:30, okay?" "Yeah, sounds good," Ryan said. "I'll go now and pick up some fresh clothes." "All right then." Russell said. See ya. Ryan then spent his afternoon shopping for clothes, boots, and a new hat. Beverly was amazed when he walked in, his arms full of new stuff. Now you can't say anything when I buy new clothes, she laughed. So when's your meeting with the board? Tomorrow morning, he answered. I'm happy you're doing this, she said. It's good for you to be part of the town. I'm very proud. He smiled and gave her a kiss. That evening, they saw on the news that the case against Knight had grown to include many of the middle managers. It looked like more folks were involved than first thought, but none seemed to know the whole story. The report on Jake also made the company's stock drop more as trust in the company hit a new low. The next day, Ryan and Russell went to the county board meeting. Like Russell said, the meeting was friendly and pretty relaxing. Ryan had to pause and think before he answered a few of the questions. Does your eye patch mess with how you see depth? One of the board members asked. At the start, yes, Ryan said, but I've gotten used to it. So you can drive and use a gun with no trouble? No problems yet, Ryan said. I usually like it when someone has direct experience in law, another board member noted. You don't even have a degree in this field. Would you consider taking an online course to get a 2-year degree? Sure, Ryan said. What do you want for pay, Mr. Caldwell? A lady on the board asked. I haven't thought much about it, Ryan said. To be honest, I'm not in it for the money. Yes, we looked over your money stuff at the bank, she said. And that nice thing you did for Miss Simons was great. Thanks, he said. She needed help, so I helped. So, for your pay, what do you want, she asked. I really didn't think about it, he said. What you give Sheriff Coltrane, maybe? Or give it to the folks with no homes in town or the place for women and kids. She gave a big smile and nodded. We can do that, she said. Right? She looked at the others. They shared looks and all nodded. Yes, we can do that, one said. Folks, he's our man, yes, the woman said. They talked it over quick. I think so, one said. Let's vote. I'm in, another said. Okay, time to vote, the woman said. All for Mr. Ryan Caldwell as sheriff, hands up. Everyone's hands went up. Any against? No hands. Good, she said. Mr. Caldwell, welcome and congrats. Thank you, Ryan said, shaking her hand. Sheriff, can you take Mr. Caldwell to get his uniform, she asked. We'll swear him in at 1 o'clock. Sure, he said. And they stood up. Back at the sheriff's office, Russell showed Ryan to some clothes that seemed to fit. Ryan was glad to see they were clean, in bags. The clothes fit him just right. Russell found a new gray hat and gave it to Ryan. Looks like it fits, he said. Ryan tried it on, surprised it fit better than his old worn-out hat. Russell gave a nod. Looking sharp, kid, he spoke. He took out a dark name badge from his desk and stuck it on Ryan's shirt. Ryan figured Russell had made it just for now. After fixing the badge, Russell eyed his watch. Time for your big moment, he said, grabbing his phone for a call. Ryan watched as Russell dialed. He was shocked to hear Beverly on the other end. Russell gave Ryan a wink and turned the call loud for both to hear. Beverly, need you at my office quick, Russell said, his voice grave. Is everything okay? She asked. Not sure, he replied. But it's big and I need you here fast. Okay, Sheriff, she said, her voice shaky. Be there in a flash. Russell hung up and smiled at Ryan. That was harsh, Ryan said. Sure was, Russell agreed. But had to be done. Wouldn't be the same without her here, right? Not long after, Beverly rushed in straight to Russell's office. Is all okay? What's up? She panted. Russell smiled, soothing her. All's good, dear, he said. Just thought you'd want to see your man get his badge. He signaled for Ryan to come. Beverly gasped, seeing Ryan in his uniform. Wow, she breathed. Always did love a uniform, she said to him. So when's the ceremony? She asked Russell. He checked his watch. Any second, he replied. Soon they heard the front door open and a bunch of dressed-up folks walked into the station. The desk officer popped in to tell Russell. Thanks, Russell said. Get everyone to the big room, would you? Sure thing, boss, she said, stepping out. Russell turned to Ryan and Beverly. Y'all set for this? He checked. Ryan seemed a bit unsure. Guess I'm as ready as I can be, Ryan replied. They walked into the big room full of people and some deputies in uniform. Ryan saw an icebox by the table and a shop-made cake all done up for the event. The deputies gave Ryan a once-over as he came in, but it looked like they were okay with Russell's pick. He didn't catch any bad vibes or envy, which was a plus. The whole thing was quick and nice. The top county board guy gave the oath and Russell pinned a new badge on Ryan. He handed something to Beverly, asking her to follow his move. She watched as Russell put 3 stars on Ryan's shirt, the marks of the sheriff. She did the same on the other side of his shirt and stepped back to look. Congrats, Sheriff, said the commissioner, shaking his hand. And God help you, he joked, making everyone laugh. Thanks, Commissioner, Ryan said. We got tea and Coke in the icebox, and Ryan, sorry, Sheriff Caldwell gets to cut the cake, Russell said, and folks chuckled. No beer, though. We're still on the clock. Ryan cut and served the cake to Beverly first, then the deputies. He gave Russell a piece, then the commissioners. He got himself a small slice and saw about a third of the cake was left. How about we save this bit for the folks still out there, he suggested. Russell nodded. Sounds good, he said. The desk sergeant, a woman, grinned and put the cake in the fridge to keep. Ryan ate his cake, then went to meet the deputies he'd be leading. They all seemed friendly, he thought, and they looked like they were cool with him being their new sheriff. After the event, Beverly went to Ryan and hugged him. He looked so sharp in his uniform, she thought. It seemed made just for him. You look so great, hun, she said. I'm so proud of you. He smiled and kissed her. Thank you, my dear, he said, trying to sound like John Wayne, but it made her laugh instead. I have to go now, love, she said. I need to get food for the chickens and start on dinner. I'll see you at home, okay? I'll be there, he said, giving her another kiss. He watched her leave. The other officers congratulated her and made her feel welcome. Ryan turned to Russell. What's next? He asked. Now, I give you your gun and your gear, Russell said. They went to the supply room, and Russell had him sign for a belt and a Smith & Wesson M and P9mm gun, a gun like the Glock 17, but made of tough plastic. Ryan knew this was a top-notch 9mm gun, and he was shocked that a small sheriff's office like theirs would have them. He almost thought they'd use old-school six-shot guns. One more thing, Russell said, taking a small box from his desk. He gave the box to Ryan, who opened it and saw a small pin with blue and white stars on one side and 3 stripes, 2 red ones with a white one in the middle. On the white stripe, it said, U.S. Army vet. What's this for? Ryan asked. It's to thank you for your service, Russell said. All our vets wear one. Ryan had noticed some of the officers had similar pins, and he saw Russell had one that said, USMC vet. Thanks, Ryan said. You're welcome, Russell said. What now? Ryan asked. We start training you up tomorrow morning, Russell said. Be here at 8 a.m. on the dot. See you then, Ryan said as he picked up his regular clothes. The deputy said bye as he left. When he got home, he kissed Beverly and went upstairs. He looked at himself in the mirror. There's a new boss here, he whispered to his reflection. He couldn't wait to tell the guys, imagining himself asking, Do you feel lucky? They had a quiet dinner and a night of love. I'm happy I was there today, Beverly said, cuddling close to him. Me too, Ryan said. Promise to stay safe? She asked. He hugged her and kissed her, feeling her warmth. I'll stay safe, my dear, he promised. The next 2 weeks zoomed by as Russell showed Ryan the ropes. Ryan watched as Russell told the deputies what to do for the day, picking up every little thing he could. This was a solid team, he thought, hardworking, driven, and true. They were on top of their game. Russell ended the meeting by asking Ryan, Want to add anything, Sheriff? Ryan knew Russell was letting everyone know he'd be the boss soon. Stay safe, Ryan said, getting nods from the deputies. Russell took Ryan to the place where they practiced shooting. Ryan was quick, hitting the bad guys and missing the good ones. Just cardboard, but it was good practice for real-life situations. Then, it was off to the driving course, and Ryan nailed it. After, Russell got in the car, shaking his head. Where'd you learn to drive? He asked. You'd be surprised, Ryan said. No, I wouldn't, Russell replied. During his time with Russell, Ryan learned as much as he could from him. Russ showed him how to use the car radio and computer and taught him how to pull cars over. Ryan signed up for online classes at the University of Texas and spent his free time learning. Russ also took him around town to meet people. At first, they were taken aback by Ryan's eye patch and scar, but they warmed up to him soon after. One day, Ryan had a question for Russ. You seem to know a lot about me, Ryan said. Why is that? Easy, Russ said. I found out about you when you put a lot of money in Goldsmith's bank. He called me to check on you, so I did. I talked to my FBI friends and kept an eye on you. I saw you on your porch and thought, why does this man with so much money live in such a rundown house looking like he's out of an old movie? I thought maybe you were hiding or about to cause trouble. I just wanted a quiet life, Ryan said. I didn't want to stand out. With all your money, Russ asked. Where did it all come from? A good chunk came from my job, Ryan said. Some from smart investments and a lot from an oil sheik who was thankful for my help. He told me to find a place where I could have peace, so I came here thinking I'd be out of sight. And the money you gave Beverly, Russ said, were you looking for something back? No, Ryan said. I just felt bad for her. Like I told Goldsmith, I know what it's like to lose everything important to you. When I saw her out there on that day, it hit me hard. Reminded me of my own tough times, what I almost did. I get it, Russell spoke soft. It's rough when someone leaves you like your wife did. Yeah, I read about it. Been there myself long ago. Not everyone can be helped like you did with her. I know, said Ryan. Ryan also rode with the other deputies to learn and to bond. He liked being with them, and they seemed to like him too. He even did night patrol with Russell a few times. One night, they were on a quiet road where couples go. They found an old truck shaking side to side. They knew what was happening, so Russell stopped behind the truck and flashed his lights. The surprise on the faces inside told the story. Russell looked at Ryan. Your turn? He asked. Sure, why not? The truck smelled of sweat and sec. They were both shocked to see Ryan. Driver's license and registration, please, Ryan said. The young man showed his license and got the registration. Need your ID too, young lady, Ryan added. She got her license from a purse on the floor. Ryan checked the IDs and looked at their faces. He made sure they were both 18, likely in high school, just looking for a secret spot. He gave back their IDs and spoke to the boy. Step out, please, he said. You, get dressed, he told the girl. The boy got out, doing up his pants and belt. Ryan took a good look at him, seeing he was very scared. You love her? Ryan asked in a low voice. Yes, sir, I do, the boy said. Ryan nodded. Thinking about marrying her? He asked. I'm not sure, the boy said. Maybe. So you care for her enough to be with her here, but maybe not for marriage, right? Do your folks know? What about hers? Ryan pushed. No, sir, they don't, said the boy, shaking. Listen, Ryan said. It's late, and I don't want to take you in for being naughty in public. I'll tell you this once. Next time, pick a place with walls and clean sheets. It's risky out here at night. There could be folks crossing the border, wild creatures, snakes, even cops with a bad eye. Got it? The boy nodded. Okay then, off you go. And don't let me see you here again, got it? Yes, sir, the boy said, hurrying into the truck. As they left, he looked out. Thanks, Sheriff, he said. Ryan just nodded as they drove away, safe from jail for now. Back in his car, Ryan saw Russell grinning. Well, he asked. Yep, they were up to it, Ryan said. The girl was without clothes under her blanket. And you let them go? Russell asked. Yeah, why not, Ryan said. No drugs or booze. Two young ones just wanting some fun. I gave him a real talking to, said don't come back, find a hotel or something. I think he got the message. Russell laughed. Welcome to being a cop, Ryan, he said, driving off. Ryan was excited to share this tale with Beverly that night. At that time, Ryan and Beverly were busy planning their wedding. They chose to have it in his backyard. While Ryan was at work, Beverly took care of all the wedding prep. Ryan wanted to help, but Beverly said no. She talked to the pastor from her church, the one she went to with her first husband, and he said he'd do the wedding after meeting Ryan. The meeting went well. Ryan showed up in his uniform. They chatted a bit, and afterwards the pastor felt good about marrying Beverly to Ryan. Ryan kept up with the news, but it looked like the night petroleum story was no longer front-page news. The legal stuff, like Jake's will and the lawsuit, was now in the hands of the courts and lawyers who were good at making things take forever. Ryan wondered if it would ever be solved. He stayed in contact with Sarah, Bob, Bill, and Jorge. They were happy for him being a sheriff and loved the photos Beverly sent of him in his uniform. The guys will never believe this, Bob wrote back, making Ryan chuckle. Then one day, while Ryan and Russell were working, Agent Smith came in. He smiled seeing Ryan in his uniform. Wow, he said. You look great in that uniform. It fits you well. Thanks, Ryan replied. I'll turn him into a cop yet, Russell said as he shook Smith's hand. So, what brings you here, Agent Smith? Got a minute? Smith asked Ryan. Yeah, of course, Ryan said. Can we talk? Smith asked. Ryan glanced at Russell, then nodded. Sure, he said. Here's fine. Sheriff Coltrane's in on everything. No secrets here. Smith looked at Russell, who gave a small nod. Okay, Smith said and sat down. Something about that place in New Mexico didn't sit right with me. Those two cars from Mexico and the Lear jet. Not enough room for all the folks we found there. Plus, I don't buy that anyone could hear guns from 12 miles off, so I checked out the 911 call. Our team found a car sound in the back. So, the call was made on the move? Ryan asked. Smith nodded. Yep, he said. I dug a bit and found a car owned by Night Petroleum in New Mexico. The address was the same as the camp. We put out a call for it and found it at Albuquerque International Sunport long-term parking. Sunport? Ryan asked. Yeah, that's the airport there, Smith explained. Got its name in the 90s. It's sunny there about 280 days a year. Smith showed Ryan a photo. Ryan's face changed when he saw it. You know him? Smith asked. I've seen him in my bad dreams, Ryan said. He's the one who shot the RPG that got my eye. He pointed at his scar. You got a name? James Weston, Smith said. Used to work for the FBI. Left 5 years ago for Knight Petroleum. He's one of Jacob Knight's main guys. Got any idea where he is now? Ryan asked. We've asked around, but no luck, Smith said. He knows we're after him and how to stay hidden. You think he had a hand in your agents dying? Ryan said. Not sure, Smith said, but it wouldn't shock me if he did. You think he's on his way here? Ryan said. I'd bet on it, Smith said. You're the one who spilled the beans, so I'm pretty sure he's after you. He showed some old photos of Weston from his FBI days. Might want to tell your crew. Ryan nodded and Russell was on the same page. You sticking around for a bit? Ryan said. Thought about it. Maybe a day or two, Smith said. Why not crash at my place then? Ryan said. Beverly would enjoy the company and we've got lots of food. I'd like that, Smith said. Thanks. Done deal, Ryan said. Just gonna let her know. I'll grab you in the morning, Ryan, Russell said. Sheriff's got a new car coming. Works for me, Smith said. They left when the day ended with Smith following Ryan home. Beverly welcomed Ryan with a big kiss and shook Smith's hand. Nice to see you, Agent Smith, she said. Hope you're into meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and gravy and green beans. Sounds perfect, Smith said. They ate after Ryan got out of his gear. Gotta say, Ryan, Smith said. That gear fits you well, I'm impressed. Thanks, Ryan said. Still learning. Smith laughed. Learning never ends in this job, he said. Any update on Knight Petroleum? Ryan said. Haven't seen much news. It's all with the lawyers and the office folks now, Smith said. DEA's checking the drug ties. Lisa and her folks are talking to the court back east. Seems like she was getting too close to Jake and Elmer's scheme. So they wanted her gone? Ryan said. Looks like it, Smith said. She must have known a bit of what was happening being with Jake in all those years. Yet, he was slick at hiding stuff from her, or so she tells, he said. Will they go after her? Ryan asked. Smith shook his head. No way, Smith replied. She's talked and helped them out. Plus, I really don't see them going after a lady in her spot. And those 2 agents that got shot? Ryan pressed on. Everything changed after the mess in New Mexico, Smith shared. But honestly, I doubt any real action will follow. It ruffled quite some feathers, I can tell you. Smith gave Ryan a look before adding more. I checked that place out top to bottom like any other crime spot, Smith said. How you slipped in and out, leaving no trace, no fingerprints, no DNA, just bullets and chaos is beyond me. Even my buddy thought it looked like some gang war. DEA agreed. I've been around, Ryan said low. Right, Smith said soft. But you can't keep on like that, not with the badge. I get it, Ryan said. Won't need to, I reckon. Better not, Smith answered. Same, said Ryan. Next morning, Russell swung by with his police car. Ryan gave Beverly a peck and told her to keep watch. Any trouble, call me straight, he said. Don't sweat it, I will, she replied. Now go bust some baddies. Ryan hopped in and Russell drove off, Smith tagging along. At the station, Russell pulled to the back, Smith parked nearby. Ryan noticed a new truck and looked at Russell. That for me? He asked. Russell nodded. Yep, he said. Knew you'd like a big truck with plenty of space above. Thanks, said Ryan. They stepped out of the car, and a man dressed smart came up to them. He gave Ryan a keychain. I hope you're happy with your new ride, Sheriff, he said. It's the best there is. It can zoom past anything, anywhere. Thanks, Ryan said. Looks good. Good job, Wilbert, Russell said. Got the papers? Right here, Sheriff, the man replied. Okay, take them inside and Sergeant Bledsoe will handle it, Russell instructed. The man nodded and went inside. Wow, Smith said, eyeing the truck. New job, new ride, new girl. You've got it all. Ryan just smiled. Can't argue with that, he remarked. They went inside and made their way to the room where the rest of the team was waiting. Russell led the meeting, then introduced Smith to take over. Smith pointed at a big photo of Weston on the wall. This guy, James Weston, is wanted by the FBI, Smith started. He's linked to a crime at a Knight Petroleum site in New Mexico. He used to work for the FBI and thinks he's heading here. Excuse me, Agent Smith, a deputy interrupted after raising his hand. Why would he come here? Smith glanced at Ryan. Everyone else did too. He's after me, Ryan said. Don't face him alone. If you spot him, tell me right away. Get help. This guy is dangerous. They all nodded, looking at the photo Sergeant Bledsoe was passing around. Any questions? Ryan asked. No one spoke, so he ended the meeting with, "Stay safe." The team left the room, each going their own way, some to their desks like Sergeant Bledsoe, and some out to their cruisers. One deputy headed out to the front where his car was parked. In just a bit, Sergeant Bledsoe ran back to Russell's room, where he, Ryan, and Smith were talking about what to do with Weston. "Sheriff," she said, "there's a man out front. Looks like that Weston guy. He's got someone with him and a gun." The three guys jumped up and ran to the front room. Ryan peeked out the window. Yup, there was Weston, across the street. He had his arm tight around a small blonde lady, Beverly. In his other hand was a gun. "Caldwell!" shouted Weston. "I know you're in there. Come out and face me." Ryan looked at Russell. "This is my mess, Sheriff," he said. "Let me deal with it. Plus, it's about time I did my part here." Russell thought a bit, then nodded. "Okay, Ryan," he whispered. "What's the plan?" Ryan turned to the other deputies. "Clear the streets," he ordered. "Move those folks out of here, and close this street from both ends, now." They rushed out to move the people away from danger. Sergeant Bledsoe used a radio, and soon 4 sheriff's cars had the street blocked. Ryan then told the 2 men with him, "Okay, Russell, go 10 yards to my right," he said. "Smith, you go 10 yards to my left. Follow me." "Got it," said Russell. He looked at Ryan. The tall man with scars wasn't just leading, he was in full control, a big deal to Russell. Then they stepped outside. Russell went 10 yards down the walk as told, his gun ready. Smith did the same in the other way, gun in hand. Ryan stood there, looking right at Weston. He saw Beverly, scared, as Weston held her close. He gave her a look. She calmed a bit and he nodded slightly. He took out his gun and got it ready. Standing out in the open, he aimed at Weston. "Boy, put that gun down and let her go, or you'll be in big trouble," he warned. "You hear me? I'm counting to 3. The deputies nearby were shocked at Ryan. They'd never seen anyone dare like this. Ryan was out in the open, not even hiding. Worse, he was talking in a way that would make anyone here mad. Ryan kept his aim on the man, while Weston looked all nervous, eyeing Smith, Ryan, and Russell. "This is just you and me, Caldwell," Weston said. "I missed you before, but not this time. Maybe I'll have some fun with your lady first." 1. Ryan started counting. Weston shook his head. Ryan nodded at Beverly, hoping she'd know what to do. He'd shown her how to defend herself, including how to flip a man who grabbed her. 2. Ryan counted. He glanced at Weston's feet again. "What's wrong, Weston? Need a lady to hide behind?" he teased. Weston got red in the face. Beverly grabbed the arm around her neck. Smart girl, Ryan thought. 3, Ryan said. Beverly bent down and threw Weston off balance. She couldn't flip him, but kneed him hard and ran to a deputy. Weston was mad, stumbling, and hurting. He stood, aimed at Ryan. Ryan shot fast, hitting Weston in the eye. The bullet went through, taking bits of brain and bone out the back. Russell and Smith also fired, hitting Weston's body. They walked to Weston's body, still ready. Ryan kicked the gun away, noting it was an old one. The hammer wasn't even pulled back. He looked at Russell and then spoke. "Do I need to tell him his rights now?" he asked, which made Russell chuckle. "No need for that," Russell said. He looked at Weston, then turned to Ryan. "Did you aim for his left eye on purpose?" he asked. "Yep," Ryan replied. "Eye for eye, right? That's what the book says." "I think it wasn't talking about being good with a gun," Russell joked. Ryan looked over to see Sergeant Bledsoe crossing the street. "I called for help, Sheriff," she said. Ryan nodded. "Thanks, Sergeant," he said, and signaled for her to come. He went over to Beverly, who ran to him crying. He hugged her tight. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I was really scared," she said. "It's fine," he told her. "We're a team, right?" She nodded again. "Go with Sergeant Bledsoe. She'll take your word and look after you." "I'll be there soon." "Okay," she said, still shaking. Sergeant Bledsoe wrapped an arm around her and took her to the other side of the street. "You're safe now," Bledsoe comforted her. Ryan turned back to where Weston lay. "I thought you said this guy used to work for the FBI?" Ryan asked Smith. "He did," Smith replied. "Must have lost his sense in old age." "Seems so," Ryan agreed. The ambulance came then. A medic checked Weston, shook his head, and they put him on a stretcher, covered him up, and put him in the ambulance. "Well, Sheriff," said Russell, "your turn to deal with the cleanup and all the paper. You know there'll be a lot of questions about the gunfight, right?" Ryan nodded. "I guessed as much," he said. "Welcome to cop life," Russell said, patting Ryan. "But one thing's sure." "What's that?" Ryan asked. "Everyone's going to feel a lot safer now. Anyone looking for trouble will think twice before messing with the sheriff in this town," Russell said. They went back into the office and Ryan made some calls while Sergeant Bledsoe took Beverly's words down. When done, the sergeant brought Beverly to him. "Sheriff, I'm going to take Beverly to her car, okay?" she asked. She was dropping off eggs to Mrs. Williams when the bad guy grabbed her. He knew Mrs. Williams lived not far, just a few blocks from the main part of town, easy to walk to. He looked at Beverly before speaking. "You good?" he asked her. "I'm good now," she said. He hugged her, holding her close. "Okay, kiddo," he said. "Time to head home. See you tonight." "Got more eggs to drop off first," she said. He smiled and nodded. "Okay, dear," he said. "Be safe. If it's too much, call me. I'll come help." "I'll be fine," she said. He watched as the sergeant took Beverly out. "That's this part of my work done," Smith said. "I'll head back unless you need more from me." "We're all set," Ryan said. "Thanks for everything. You'll be at the wedding, right?" "Wouldn't miss it," Smith said. He shook Russell's hand too. "Good to see you, Sheriff," he said. Russell nodded. "You too, Agent Smith," Russell said. After Smith left, Russell turned to Ryan. "Well, catching the bad guy is only half the job. Let's go. We got papers to write." Better said, "You got papers to write." Knowing he couldn't avoid it, Ryan followed Russell to work on paperwork. That night, he held Beverly close as she shook. Her soft skin against him made him want her more, but he knew she just needed to be held, to feel safe. There was time for love later. "Hold me, please," she asked. He pulled her in tighter, breathing in her scent. She said, "It was the second time you saved me." She asked, "Will it be like this every day?" "No, dear," he said. "I think we're past the worst. They tried their best, but didn't win." But he kept a secret that they were just lucky. If Weston had been ready, it could have been bad. He didn't tell Beverly to keep her calm. 2 weeks after the fight, Ryan was at his big desk. Russell had moved to a smaller desk, so Ryan had his main work spot. He was done with his day's work and was looking at an online class, trying to get ahead to take a week off for a honeymoon. Russell was not there. He was out, looking to sell his house. Then there was a knock. Ryan looked up to see Sergeant Bledsoe. "Sheriff, a Texas Ranger is here to see you," she said. "Let him in, please," Ryan said. She moved so the Ranger could come in. Ryan saw a tall, thin man who looked like he was from an old movie. He had a worn hat, a red shirt, blue jeans, and cowboy boots, with spurs, and a long coat. Ryan saw the man's badge and the guns he wore. He wondered if he was seeing right. Were those old guns? He asked the Ranger to come in and shook his hand. "Sit down. How can I help you today, Ranger?" Ryan asked. "I'm Peace," the Ranger said, taking a seat. "Justice O. Peace. Came to tell you the checkup is done. You're in the clear." "That's good to hear, Ranger Peace," Ryan said, thinking the name was odd. The Ranger looked serious and said, "You did good with the gun," Justice said. "Did you aim for his left eye?" Ryan nodded. "Yes," Ryan said. "How'd you figure that out?" "You told that to Sheriff Coltrane, didn't you?" Justice asked. "I don't think that was in the report," Ryan replied. "Nope," Justice said. "Just something I saw. I'm good at that. Tell me, was it 'cause of?" he said, pointing at the cover over Ryan's left eye. "I guess," Ryan said. Justice nodded. "Eye for an eye, right?" Justice asked. "He took your eye in the Middle East, so you did the same. I get it. Your own kind of fair payback, right?" "How do you know that?" Ryan asked. Justice just shrugged. "I'm paid to know," he said. "I can learn a lot from a man's gaze, or in your case, eye." Justice stood and looked out the window. "It's been a while since I was here. Things sure have changed." Ryan thought about what he said. True, there had been some new things built, but he had seen photos, and the town looked much the same as it did 40 years ago. "Just a quiet, love-peace town," Ryan said, "and it's my job to keep it that way." Justice turned to face him. "That's right," Justice said. "You know, when Sheriff Coltrane picked you for this job, many of us, me too, thought it was a bad idea. It's not often, but I'm big enough to say when I'm wrong." He reached out his hand. Ryan stood and took it. "Thanks, Ranger. That means a lot from you," Ryan said. Justice smiled and nodded. "Not every day I meet someone who can make a man's heart stop just by looking," Justice said. Ryan was surprised. He was sure no one knew what happened that day at the courthouse with Jake. "You know, you remind me a lot of an old pal of mine. People used to say he'd face the worst with just a bucket of water," Justice said. "I just wanted to look you in the eye and see if you were good folks. And I think you are." "Thanks, Ranger," Ryan said. "Hey, if you need anything from me or my folks, just ask." Justice gave a small, tight smile to Ryan as they shook hands. "I'll keep that in mind, Sheriff Caldwell," Justice said. "Take good care of your lady, you hear?" "I will, Ranger," Ryan said. Justice nodded. "See you around," he said as he headed to the door. "Have a good day now, okay?" "Will do, Ranger," Ryan said. "You too." Ryan felt a cold shiver as he watched the ranger go by, tipping his hat at Sergeant Bledsoe. He sat back at his computer and then heard what he thought was the sound of hooves outside. He looked, but saw nothing. Maybe I'm going nuts, he thought, and got back to work. Soon after, there was a knock on his door. He saw Sergeant Bledsoe. "Yes, Sergeant, what's up?" he asked. "If it's okay to ask, Sheriff, what did that ranger want?" she asked. He said the shooting was okay, and all is well, Ryan said. "I don't know why they'd send a ranger to tell us that. Don't they use email?" "Who knows these days," she said with a grin. "Can I speak my mind for a bit, Sheriff?" "Of course, Sergeant," Ryan said. "What's on your mind?" "Well, the others and I were talking," she began. "At first we were unsure about you after Sheriff Coltrane chose you, seeing as you were new to police work." "I get that," Ryan said. "I was unsure too. But I think I speak for all of us when I say we're happy you're here," she said with a smile. "Thank you, Elaine," he said, using her first name. "That means a lot to me." "I'm happy to be here with you all too," she said with a smile. "That's it for me, Sheriff," she added. "I need to go back to work now." Ryan nodded. "Same here," he replied. 2 weeks flew by, and then Ryan and Beverly got a letter from the county. They were chosen for a big honor, and the big boss of the state and the top lawyer were going to come give it to them. Ryan didn't think he should get an honor. He just thought he was doing his job. But he was happy Beverly was getting one. So he dressed up in his best cop outfit and went with Beverly to the big house where they do the law stuff for the award thing. While the big boss talked, Ryan had a thought. It seemed right that a cop with one good eye got an honor from a big boss who used a wheelchair. He felt proud when he saw Beverly get her award. Then it was his turn. After he got his paper of honor, he faced everyone and said, "And this is to tell troublemakers to stay away, don't mess with Texas." Everyone clapped a lot, Ryan and Beverly too. After the clapping stopped, Beverly leaned close and said something bold. "You make me feel all warm and bold, cowboy," she told him. "I've never been with a real hero before, so yes," he answered. 2 weeks later, Ryan was in his room putting on a fancy suit. Today was the big day. He and Beverly were going to get married. Beverly was strong and got over a scary thing that happened with someone bad named Weston. As he got ready, he looked out and saw a white flying machine land where he shoots. It had a mark he hadn't seen in about 4 years. He knew Jim had a plan to take them to Las Vegas for their honeymoon, but he wasn't ready for this. His eyes popped when he saw Jim jump out of the chopper in a neat uniform. What the heck, he thought. He raced down the stairs and reached the kitchen just as Jim walked in. "Jim," he said. "What the heck?" Jim grinned and shook his hand. "Like it?" Jim said, showing off his uniform with shiny wings and stripes on his arm. "Looks cool," Ryan said. "But looks like my boss just got here," Jim said. "Boss?" Ryan asked. Jim nodded toward the front window. Ryan looked and saw a big white limo stop in front of the house. Ryan dashed outside just as a door swung open. Out stepped 2 young Middle Eastern guys. One held the door as a very known figure in a bright white robe got out. He reached out his hand, holding the hand of a very pretty Middle Eastern lady. Ryan went to the gate to meet them. "Sheikh Abdullah," Ryan said. "As salam alaikum," adding, shaking the man's hand. The man smiled back. "Wa alaikum assalam, Ryan. Good to see you too, my old friend." "I'm surprised," Ryan said. "Didn't think you'd come." The old man smiled and nodded. "Just wrapped up some work and thought I'd visit," he said. "It's like a cherry on top. Please let me show you my wife, Aliyah," he said, turning to the short woman by him. Ryan knew the sheikh was more open than other Middle Eastern men, but he still didn't want to upset him or his wife. So he put his hand on his chest and bowed a bit as he said hi. She smiled and did the same. "And my eldest sons, Muhammad and Ibrahim," the sheikh said. Ryan shook their hands and said hello too. "I hear you've been to our land," Muhammad said. "Yes," Ryan said. "I worked for your dad for a bit but never met his family." "My boys were in college then," the sheikh said. "Harvard Business School. Now they can show I didn't just throw my money away." Ryan gave a small laugh. "Please come in," Ryan said. He held the gate for them and led them inside. The house was full, but Ryan caught Bob's eye and waved him over. "Sheikh, this is my son-in-law, Robert Green," Ryan introduced. Bob shook hands with the sheikh, then with Muhammad and Ibrahim. He gave a nod to Aliyah, noticing Ryan hadn't shook her hand. "So they call you Gunner, right?" the sheikh asked. Bob blushed a bit and nodded. "Yes, that's me," he said. "It fits," the sheikh said. "Jim told me about you. I've been keeping up with your work at the Commerce Department. That piece you wrote on making Amtrak make money was quite a read." "You saw that?" Bob seemed shocked. "Oh yes," the sheikh replied. "Too bad your folks will never use it. It's too smart." They all shared a laugh. I think you're more than what the Commerce Department offers. Maybe it's time for you to try something new. I'm not sure what else I'd do, said Bob. Maybe you'd like to work for me, the sheikh suggested. For you? Bob was taken aback. Doing what? I might as well spill the beans, the sheikh started. Night Petroleum is falling apart. Stocks down, trust low, everything's a mess. I've been keeping up, said Bob. I've just sealed a deal to take it over, the sheikh revealed. Bob was stunned. Yes, we got about 75% of the stock and made the deal. Just needs your government's okay, but that's just paperwork. We're bringing in new heads as soon as we get the green light. Wow, Bob said, his eyes lighting up. Yes, I'd love that, thank you. Great, the sheikh replied. Let's talk after the party about the job and what you'll get paid. Sounds amazing, thanks, Bob said. The sheikh turned to Ryan, taking an envelope from Muhammad. He handed it over. I hope it's okay, the sheikh said. A small wedding gift. I've set up my fancy helicopter for you for a week, and the pilot too. I also made sure you got the top room in the place, plus a bit of cash for fun. Thank you, sheikh. That's way more than needed, Ryan said. I wanted to, the sheikh smiled. Have fun. It's not every day you're in Las Vegas, right? Totally true, Ryan said with a grin. And where's your beautiful wife, the sheikh asked. She's getting ready upstairs with my kid, Ryan explained. She's supposed to stay hidden until the wedding starts. Got it, the sheikh nodded. Mr. Green, shall we find our seats? Of course, Bob said. Then I must hurry back. I'm my dad's right-hand man today. The sheikh nodded, and as they left, Ryan opened the envelope. His jaw dropped at a prepaid Visa card worth $100,000. To the sheikh, this was just a little thing. Glancing around, Ryan thought about his journey to this moment. The house was full of friends, old and new. Bill, Buster, Ian, Jim, and Cap were all there. So were Horish, Jay Goldsmith, and all the cops not on duty, plus Russell. Some folks from the county board were there too. He hoped there was enough food and drink for all. He was happy he had a lot of room out back for cars to park. Many of Beverly's pals and some folk from nearby were there too, but one person was not. Then he saw a dark SUV drive in. Agent Smith got out, then helped his wife out. Ryan smiled to meet his pal. I thought you guys might not come, Ryan said. We wouldn't miss it, Smith said. He brought his wife Gloria over and Buster showed them where to sit. Ryan saw it was time. He checked how he looked in a mirror, then went out. He stood where the wedding would be with Bob, Ian, and Cap. They all looked as the wedding march played outside. All grinned as little Ryan spread flowers before them. Bob kept Ryan steady as he saw Beverly walk up with Russell after Sarah, Elaine Bledsoe, and Trish Calloway, a good pal of Beverly. Beverly was so pretty Ryan forgot to breathe. When they got to the front, the pastor asked, "Who gives this woman to be wed?" "On behalf of the folks of Hard Rock, Texas, I do," Russell said. That made everyone smile. The wedding made everyone feel good, and it was all shown live for Beverly's son at the Naval Academy to see. A few days before, Ryan and he talked over Skype and got along well. After the vows, the pastor had them turn to everyone there. The one in charge spoke. Let's welcome Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Caldwell for the first time, making everyone clap. The party was great, with a band playing a mix of country, bluegrass, and rock music. There was loads of food and drinks, and everyone had a blast, talking and dancing. All came to wish the new couple well, and Ryan was happy that no one brought up Lisa. He knew about her bad luck from friends. She had lost most of her money, sold her big house, and now lived in a place where she could get help and treatment that might go on for years. Plus, she was seen as part of the bad stuff Jake, Elmer, and their team did. She only stayed out of jail because she helped the police and was not well. Timmy, the man who hurt Lisa, would be in jail for about 10 years because his lawyers made a deal with the judge. Some of the bosses at night were also going to jail for doing wrong. The police in England hadn't found who killed Blackstone yet, but were still looking with help from the FBI. The big lawsuit was moving slow, and Ryan didn't think he'd get any money from it. Yet he felt good knowing Knight's name would always be linked to bad things. The law said a drug group from south of the line did the attack on the Knight place. Smith was off to Washington, D.C. to take a new job to help fix the agency. All in all, Ryan felt things ended up okay. He and Beverly had to figure out what to do with their houses, but he knew they'd sort it out. Beverly's egg shop was doing good, and she talked about making it bigger and maybe getting some help, turning her old place into a workspace. I just want to say thanks for staying to watch my hens, Beverly told Sarah and Bob. I just hope it's not too much to ask. No way, Mom, Sarah said. I'm a vet, remember? It's fun. Plus, you two need some time together. Are you sure you guys got this? Ryan asked Bob, giving him keys to the house. Don't worry, Dad, Bob said. Sarah and I got it. And we'll help him, right, boys? Buster asked. Cap, Ian, Bill, and Jorge all nodded. All right, Ryan said. Thanks for all. No problem, Dad, Bob said. You guys go, have fun. Ryan turned to Russell. All good here, he asked. Russell laughed. Oh, we'll be fine for a week without you, he said, still laughing. Go, your chopper's waiting. Ryan and Beverly said bye and ran through friends throwing rice. They got to the helicopter and Jim shut the door as they got in. Jim had put their bags in the chopper and they were set. After the door shut, everyone saw Just Married on one of the back windows. Sorry, Cap whispered to Sheikh Abdullah. I had to do it. It's okay, the Sheikh said. It will give Jim a task. They all laughed. They waved as Ryan and Beverly waved from the chopper. They watched it lift, then turn and head north. You think they'll join the Mile High Club in that? Buster asked. It wouldn't be the first time, the Sheikh said, smiling. It's way nicer than that old thing Jim messes with. Think Ryan got what he was searching for? Ian asked. The Sheikh nodded. I think so, he said. Sarah looked at him, puzzled. What was he searching for? She asked. The Sheikh gazed at the chopper, now almost gone. Peace, he spoke. And a dad's right. The world went dark. Hey, audience. If you liked this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.